The first discussion topic on today's Peace and Prosperity is the implications of North Korea's close coordination with China on the Korean Peninsula and denuclearization talks. Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi arrived in Pyongyang on September 2nd to meet with its North Korean counterpart during a 3-day stay. The visit has fueled speculation that North Korean leader Kim Jong-un could visit China in October near the 70th anniversary of diplomatic relations between North Korea and China. North Korea's latest move to bolster ties with China comes amid prolonged impasse in nuclear talks with the U.S. Will China be a new path for the North? Today's second topic is the reason for the exchange of tough rhetoric between Pyongyang and Washington ahead of possible working-level negotiations. Amid stalled nuclear talks, U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo and North Korean Foreign Minister Ri Yong-ho have exchanged strong words. Ri slammed the chief U.S. negotiator, calling him a poisonous plant of American diplomacy, while Pompeo blamed North Korea's rogue behavior for the stall in negotiations. What can explain the months-long stalemate in the talks, and how will the Chinese top diplomat's visit to Pyongyang affect future dialogue between North Korea and the U.S.? To shed light on these latest developments, our host, Hong Young-sik, Research Fellow at Yonsei University's Institute for North Korean Studies, is joined by Choo Jae-woo, Professor of Chinese Studies at Kyung Hee University, in the studio. To broaden the perspective, we also connect with guest experts on Skype, including Steve Chung, Assistant Lecturer at the Chinese University of Hong Kong, specializing in Korean Peninsula issues, and Bruce Klingner, Senior Research Fellow at the Heritage Foundation and the CIA's former Deputy Division Chief for Korea.
Hello and welcome to our program. Amid a month-long stalemate in North Korea-US negotiations, Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi visited the North. How will Wang's trip affect future nuclear talks? To help us break down the latest development, we have Professor Choo Jae-woo from Kyung Hee University here with us today. Thanks for coming to our program, Professor.
Thank you. Thank you.
Of course, our first question regards, Foreign Minister of China Wang Yi's visit to North Korea, which will be his third time to visiting North Korea. What is the core message that he is going to deliver to North Korean leadership?
Yes, I think his main message is to deliver Xi Jinping's invitation to Kim Jong-un about attending the 70th anniversary of the foundation of the People's Republic of China, which will be on October 1st. And the second message may be they may try to arrange some ceremonial activities in Beijing while Kim Jong-un, if he accepts the invitation and stays in Beijing for an extended period until October 6th, which would also commemorate the 70th anniversary of the bilateral relationship between North Korea and China. So I think these two events overlapping in the same period, I think that's his main message, inviting Kim Jong-un to Beijing.
So we are expecting a summit meeting between Xi Jinping and Kim Jong-un?
Most likely, because the 70th anniversary is meaningful to both countries.
So it seems like it's a kind of a reciprocation of Chinese President Xi Jinping's previous visit to Pyongyang.
Yes,
right?
in June, yes.
Right. But my question is, where is the beef? Right? Symbolic gestures would not really help North Korea escape from the pressure of diplomatic isolation and economic sanctions.
Yes, but beef is always hidden under the table between the two countries,
or
right?
between the past, right?
Yes, that's right, between the parties.
Yeah.
Because apart from all these, political events, there may be, project to be only symbolic in meanings, right? But at the same time, in the following events of the political events, there has been always active economic exchanges between the two countries. So we may expect some sort of follow-up measures in the economic area.
All right.
Yeah.
We now turn to an expert overseas to further our discussion. We have on the line Mr. Steve Chung, Assistant Lecturer of the Global Studies Program at the Chinese University of Hong Kong. Hello.
Okay, so thank you for having me.
Good to have you here. On October 6th, North Korea and China will celebrate the 70th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic ties. There are even rumors of a possible summit meeting between the leaders of the country ahead of the landmark event. What is your forecast?
I think we may know more positively on upcoming Sino-DPRK relationships. As in the coming weeks, as you just mentioned, China and North Korea will celebrate their 70th anniversary of their friendship establishments. And besides that, especially after the slow progress on the North Korea and US and also the inter-Korean talks, North Korea and China, they mutually need each other to consolidate their mutual friendships. And also they try to squeeze out the possible leverage that they can try to get through the current diplomatic stalemates in Northeast Asia in fitting their mutual interest. And in addition, I think Pyongyang will also take these warm welcoming opportunities to reopen the possible dialogue with Beijing in getting through more and more trade discussions with China, especially since the major harvest in Pyongyang this year didn't go very well. What China can offer back to North Korea for goods, for services, for trading would be very important for Kim Jong-un in resolving the economic hardships. And so that's why I'm quite optimistic about the development of the DPRK and China's relationship in the upcoming weeks.
Okay, you sound very optimistic. With a lack of progress in working level talks between North Korea and the United States, is a correct interpretation that the Chinese leadership is trying to take advantage of this stalemate and make itself as a mediator, or at least enlarge its role to play on the Korean Peninsula affairs, especially with regard to North Korea's denuclearization?
I think surely China would take this opportunity, especially when Washington and Seoul, they failed to bridge the connection with Pyongyang since the dialogue being closed down. And because of that, I think China would try to maximize the interest because of that situations. And for the problem of denuclearizations, I think when the US President Donald Trump become more proactive in extending his friendship with Chairman Kim, I think the Chinese role in this issue would inevitably be marginalized. So that's why China would like to take these good opportunities in playing more mediating roles, and especially when White House and Pyongyang found themselves in a very bad mood of any kinds of dialogues, and Beijing can offer as a mediating role to rebridge this kind of dialogue and bring trust among them. And with that, I think Beijing can show their valuable diplomatic value to Washington, and it would also help Beijing to get a better deal to talk to Donald Trump about the trade war as well.
Very interesting. Can you also clarify North Korea's intentions or strategic goals behind all this, especially its invitation of Chinese Foreign Minister?
I think what Pyongyang would like to do is try to make Beijing to be continuously offering help for themselves, because as I mentioned that Pyongyang, especially talking about when they have a closed down talking to the US, and also the dialogue between Seoul and Pyongyang was not going that very well. I think Pyongyang also needs some diplomatic support, and especially during this period of time, Pyongyang can get some support financially, economically, and also diplomatically from China, and in celebrating the 70th anniversary of the friendship establishments. So I think it will be a very important occasion for Pyongyang to extend the friendship, their diplomatic supports through the Chinese channels.
Right. It was Mr. Steve Chung, Global Studies Program at Chinese University of Hong Kong. Thank you very much for connecting with us today.
Okay. Have a nice day. Thank you.
Right. So, Professor Choo, it
Yes.
seems like Mr. Steve Chung is very optimistic about summit meeting between
Yes.
Xi Jinping and Kim Jong-un.
Yes, he seems like. Plus, it'll be on a special occasion, so I think that's why he has his hopes high.
But does it mean that the concept of the new path
Yes.
that Chairman Kim Jong-un emphasized, if the negotiation between North Korea and the United States would not go well,
Yes.
does it mean that new path is closer ties between North Korea and China?
Yes, he already made that position really clear in his New Year's address this year. And he implied that these two nations that he would like to hedge on would be Russia and China. And by describing China as a socialist state in his address, and Russia as a traditionally friendly nation, so he made it he made it implicitly that his desire is to hedge against the United States and place his bet on China and Russia if things does not
So
go
it's
his
not
way.
really a new path. It's
No.
a new path toward the old friends.
Yes.
Right? In that regard, I have to challenge you to get the answer
Yes.
once again on the same question that can China be enough? Can China be enough to replace the United States
Yes.
for Kim Jong-un leadership of North Korea to get what it wants, like
Yes.
sanction reliefs and security guarantees and whatnot?
Yes, for sanction reliefs, I don't think China's enough for North
China
Korea.
is not enough.
No, China's not enough because you have to go through the Security Council of the United Nations and the permanent Security Council members too. You have to persuade them. But on North Korea's regime survivability or regime's security, I think China is the best viable and available option for North Korea thus far. As of today, despite more sanctions placed on North Korea has been surviving under the same circumstances over the 70 years, and by only depending on China the last 40 years. So I think China has been an effective and sufficient source of survivability to North Korea's regime.
Right. North Korea's closer ties with China may not be a welcome development for the United States. We'll talk more about where North Korea-US talks stand now after watching a short clip.
Amid a deadlock in denuclearization talks between North Korea and the U.S., the two sides are exchanging increasingly fierce rhetoric. In an interview with Washington Examiner on August 18, U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said North Korea will remain under America's toughest sanctions as long as it doesn't denuclearize. A few days later, on August 23rd, North Korea's Foreign Minister Ri Yong-ho lashed out at Pompeo, calling him a poisonous plant of American diplomacy. On August 27th, Pompeo said the U.S. recognized North Korea's rogue behavior and that it could not be ignored.
We recognize that North Korea's rogue behavior could not be ignored.
The standoff continued. On August 30th, the U.S. Treasury Department placed sanctions on several Taiwan and Hong Kong-based companies and associated individuals for allegedly providing oil shipments to North Korea in violation of UN sanctions. Washington added that the measures are to highlight North Korea's use of illicit ship-to-ship transfers to evade UN sanctions. Watchers say the sanctions are Washington's latest effort to keep North Korea under pressure. North Korea immediately responded. North Korean First Vice Foreign Minister Choi Sun-hee said in a statement dated August 31st that the North has been forced to reconsider all measures taken so far and warned Washington not to test its patience. Despite Pyongyang's condemnation, the U.S. State Department said that it's ready to resume negotiations if the North agrees to do so. As North Korea and the U.S. continue to play the blame game, we take a look at what's behind the exchange of heated rhetoric between the two sides.
Professor Choo,
Yes.
you know very well that recently the U.S. Treasury Department has expanded its North Korean sanctions to include several Taiwanese and Hong Kong-based firms and
Yes.
associated individuals for alleged illegal, transfer of fuel to North Korea. Does it indicate that the Trump administration is going to be tougher on North Korea?
Yes, I think it's going to be. It shows it's going to be tougher, and I don't think it's exclusively on Taiwan and Hong Kong firms and associated individuals, like you pointed out. But I think he's giving a message to Northeast Asian countries around North Korea that you have to be careful in dealing with North Korea. And I think South Korea and some Japanese firms have been on the radar of the United States for some time, and I think it's a precursor to the forthcoming, United States stance on this particular issue.
I see. We have an expert from the United States on the line, Mr. Bruce Klingner, Senior Research Fellow at the Heritage Foundation. Hello.
Well, hello. Thank you for having me again. I look forward to the interview.
Okay. North Korean Foreign Minister yeongyang called U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, in his own words, a poisonous plant of American diplomacy. What do you think the intention behind this such strong comments?
It reflects North Korea's intent on a number of different objectives. One is to pull away President Trump away from Secretary Pompeo as well as National Security Advisor Bolton. They see both Pompeo and Bolton as requiring or demanding North Korea take steps towards denuclearization, where they see as Trump is more likely to offer concessions or to lower the bar for North Korean requirements, as he did in Singapore. So they're trying to get another summit really focusing on President Trump without the involvement or the interference, as they would see it, by Pompeo or Bolton. Also, they're trying to signify to the Trump administration, if you want any kind of deal, you have to lower your requirements lower than what is required under the 11 UN resolutions.
So, Mr. Klingner, how concerned do you think the United States is about Wang Yi's visit to North Korea?
Well, our focus is on North Korea. North Korea is the one that's in violation of the UN resolutions and has been committing a number of violations by even the short-range ballistic missiles, which are each one is a violation. So North Korean-Chinese relations have ebbed and flowed over the years, and including during Kim Jong-un's time. So now they seem to be on an upswing, and the matter of concern for that is that now China might be more likely to turn more of a blind eye to North Korean sanctions violations, or Beijing may press Washington harder for sanctions relief.
At the Supreme People's Assembly held in April, North Korea has set the year-end deadline for talks with the United States. Why then is North Korea stalling for time when even working-level talks are not yet to begin?
Well, North Korea is trying to pressure the U.S. to lower its requirements in denuclearization talks, trying to accept North Korea as a nuclear weapons state, and with sort of a vague or low-level threat that it may do something more in the future. So the short-range missile tests are violations, but it's sort of a low-level violation in that the international community has not really responded over the years to short-range or even medium-range missiles. So Kim may try to ratchet up pressure on the U.S. by not only doing additional short-range missiles, but he may try to step up pressure by other provocations such as a medium-range. But if he gets into intermediate or certainly ICBM testing or nuclear testing, that could very well generate a strong response by the Trump administration. So Kim has to, if he's trying to increase pressure, has to get close to the red line but not cross it.
All right, Mr. Bruce Klingner, thank you so much for joining us today.
Okay. Right. Well, thank you very much for having me. I enjoyed it.
All right, great. So, Professor Choo, any comments or reactions to Mr. Klingner's analysis?
I was a little shocked there, when he talked about, how international community is not really concerned about, short range and intermediate range missiles over the years, and I guess if that is the case, and if he sees that as a low-level violation of United Nations sanctions resolution, then I think it's a little bit of concern to the eyes of South Korea, because I guess
Country already within the range of
that's
short-range
right,
missiles from North
exactly,
Korea.
exactly, and to the United States and probably the long-distance international community members may not feel the same security insecurity level as we do.
Okay, if current stalemate continues,
Yes.
which country will gain and which country will lose?
I think that's a really difficult question to answer, but to me personally, I think it'll be a win-win situation for both countries.
Win-win?
Win-win. Win-win. Because I think the United States, for the United States, definitely, I think it can gain some breathing time, because obviously Donald Trump is preoccupied with a lot of issues, and I think his hands are full.
Like Iran,
Iran.
trade dispute with China.
That's right, China.
Election next year.
Exactly, domestic politics, and on top of that, the ongoing trade war with China is the key. And to North Korea, definitely, I think it can buy some time to materialize its so-called new path, and try to develop a more sophisticated and articulate its hedging strategy against the United States, and place some more bets on Russia and China.
Then what about South Korea? If stalemate continues and
Yes.
no working level meetings between Washington and Pyongyang will
Yes.
take place, then
Yes.
does it make South Korea a winner or a loser in this context?
I think we can turn the situation to our advantage. I may sound a little optimistic here, because I've been saying, okay, stalemate is sometimes good.
Stalemate is sometimes
good. Yeah, that's right. It gives you breathing time. You can refresh yourself and just clear your brain and try to think harder and come up with some better solution. It gives you time there. So I think for South Korea also, I think they can turn the situation, the stalemate situation, to its own advantage to try to come up with some other creative and innovative strategy. Because like we just throughout the panel, throughout the session, we've been talking about how China wants to play a greater role, and China has been actively engaging itself in with all these parties, and I think to South Korea, while we're in the stalemate situation, I think we can develop a strategy that will more incorporate China into the equation, because I think we have neglected the China factor here. We've been just focusing on the United States and North Korea, and so I think we can broaden our concept of strategy here and try to make it more effective.
So if South Korean government is going to insert itself as a mediator
Yes.
once again, then that should be better after the summit meeting between Xi Jinping and Kim Jong-un.
Yes.
All
Yes.
right, great. Right. All right, Professor Choo, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
U.S. President Donald Trump has made himself clear once again that he's not looking for a regime change in North Korea, and that he believes North Korea has tremendous economic potential. Answering journalists' questions at the White House on Wednesday, Trump lumped North Korea and Iran together, suggesting the possibility of striking a deal with them.
We're not looking for regime change. They have tremendous potential, and I think they're going to want to take advantage of that potential. I really believe that. I think North Korea is a country with tremendous potential, and I think they're going to want to take advantage of it. So we'll see what happens.
Such remarks are seen as a gesture to get North Korea back to the negotiating table amid a deadlock in the North Korea-U.S. denuclearization talks. And as analysts say, time is not in Trump's favor. During the G7 summit held in France late last month, Trump also commented on the regime's potential while addressing questions on Iran.
Bongsae this week is the Supreme People's Assembly of North Korea. The Supreme People's Assembly, SPA, in North Korea is the highest organ of state power under the Constitution. The second SPA session of this year was held on August 29th, Mr. Kim Jong-un's status was even more strengthened as the head of state and the commander-in-chief. But this time, the SPA said nothing much of the United States, which is in contrast to the April SPA session, when Kim Jong-un declared that he would wait until the year's end for Washington's courageous decision. Perhaps Kim wants to urge the Trump administration that time is running out and North Korea will never compromise its demands in order to start the working-level negotiations anytime soon. Let's wait how Washington will respond to this. And that is all we have for you today. Thanks for watching.